Welcome to this episode of Harvey County Talk. As always, I am your host, Lance Gormley. Our guest on the program today is Pastor of Newton Christian Church, Chad Grondin. How you doing today, Chad?
Doing great.
Doing good.
Not real happy about the resurgence of winter.
Yeah, I keep telling everybody that the groundhog was right this year, and then the first time, I've said it to everybody, the groundhog is right. The groundhog is right this year, and then everybody's messaging me now saying, I think the groundhog was wrong.
I think it's going to be nice again this weekend, though.
Yeah,
so
I'll take it. Yeah, especially because we're coming up on Easter weekend. So it's always nice to have a nice warm Easter weekend. People go to church and they get to be with their families and just enjoy the outside nice weather. Yeah. And it's kind of preluding into spring. So yeah, I just thank you for coming on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
If anybody's wondering why Chad's here, has a lot to do with the fact that I'm a fan of Chad. I'm a fan of Newton Christian Church. My family goes there. I've been there on numerous occasions. And anybody that knows me knows that I watch more than one sermon in a week. There's a few churches that I like to just catch their social media or YouTube or whatever they've got. That's what I do with a lot of my pastime. I like to listen to the radio or podcasts, and most everybody's digitized at this point in time, and so I just utilize that time to be able to listen to the messages that God is giving to those that are out there in the community and shepherding their flock or those, and there's so many uniquenesses and differences amongst all of them, and there's so much value that can be had from being able to just listen to different messages, the heart of the pastor, the heart of the shepherd, I'll say. And anywho, so I've watched Chad, I don't know how many times. In fact, we were just talking before that recently I had kind of fallen behind, and I was having a rough morning, and so I just turned on Newton Christian Church. You can go find them on Facebook, or they have a YouTube channel. That's what I usually like to watch. And anyway, so I just I was listening to some of the messages, and there was one message, I think I caught like 3 or 4 sermons, but one of them was that you were preaching was faith over fear. And it impacted me and it moved me. And I thought, you know what? I just want to have Chad come out here. He's new to Harvey County. He's new to Newton. I don't know. Maybe you're even a new Kansas native. I'm not sure, but we're going to get into that. And I didn't know him really before. And I thought this is just going to be a great opportunity to have an amazing person that truly does love Christ and is moved here, is now somebody that's calling Newton and Harvey County home. And, this is what Harvey County Talk is about. So I guess the first question is you mentioned that you were from Las Vegas, right? So like Sin City here, okay? Everybody knows it as Sin City, and we have a pastor here in Newton that came from Sim City. So I just got to ask, is that where you originally were born and hail from?
Well, no, I was actually originally born in Massachusetts.
Okay, wow.
Just about 20 miles outside of Boston.
Huh.
And when I was 14, my family moved
cross country
out to Las Vegas, and no real specific reason. At the time, the economy was not real good back there.
Okay.
My dad kind of was tired of his job, and the economy was doing well out in Las Vegas. He had an opportunity to take a job that he was going to enjoy more, and so it was just time for a family change.
Yeah. So you went crazy across the states.
Yeah. So, the interesting thing about Sin City, though, is the Bible says that where sin increases, grace increases all the more, man.
I like that.
So it's more publicized out there.
Yeah.
But man, I'll tell you, I've lived in lots of different places, and the problems out there, they're everywhere.
Okay, so interesting. I didn't know that. So Massachusetts, right? So you did your teenage years, more or less, or no, your young years there.
Yeah, until I was 14, yeah.
And then you moved out to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Was that a change for you? I mean, was that like a culture shock?
Yeah, I mean, it was. Certainly going from the greenery of the Northeast, ocean and all that, to the desert.
Yeah.
It was, but it was a good change though.
Yeah.
It was a good change.
It's warmer.
And a lot warmer. Yeah. Kind of like an oven, you know, at times. But it was a good change though.
Yeah.
It was a good change. And so, I kind of consider Las Vegas, I guess, still to be home because my family's still out there. My mom and dad, my sister and her family, they're still out there. I actually have never been back to Massachusetts since we moved away.
Wow.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Wow. That's
yeah.
interesting to say that so they're transplants, but ultimately they laid down roots and they've been there for a very long time.
Yeah, yeah. And I still have a little bit of family, maybe some cousins and things that live up in the Northeast, but a lot of my family has moved away too. And so now they're kind of scattered. I got family in California, of course, Vegas and St. Louis, even have some family, Tennessee. They're kind of all scattered around now.
But immediate family is Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, that's
and
right.
And then, okay, you're kind of, I didn't know this because I hadn't seen you in person. I had just watched you, or whatever. But you're like 6'8" or something, aren't you? Aren't you you're a very tall man.
6'5", unless I have my platform shoes on.
Well, I guess maybe I'm short. I don't know. But I'm like, whoa, that's Chad. How's Chad doing? I didn't know you were so tall. And the first thing I asked him, everybody was like, did you play basketball? but okay, so
if I'm on my knees, I'm not that tall.
There you go. I like that. Good. Probably still taller than me on your knees.
Maybe.
I love it. But interesting is I always ask people, what did you do in high school? Did you play sports, or what were you into when you were in high school? Just being a teenager and what was your hobbies or your interests?
Well, when I was in middle school, I actually started playing the drums.
Okay.
So I played the drums in middle school and in high school. When I got into high school, I got into an ROTC program.
Very cool.
A naval ROTC program, which was pretty cool because I ended up going into the military after I graduated high school.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool because ROTC allowed me to go in as a little bit higher rank.
Yeah.
Than I would have.
Yeah.
So, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. And then my senior year in high school, I actually joined the wrestling team as well. I had a friend of mine that actually, a friend from ROTC, he was a wrestler. And he was like, hey, why don't you come out and join the wrestling team? I'm like, okay, I've never done it before, but okay, sure.
A little bit of camaraderie there, right?
So did a little bit of that, just a little bit of that. But
so you wrestled a little bit, but I just want to say I think it's highly interesting that you did the ROTC program in the Navy, and that's in the desert. Right. Love it right now. But cool enough. So
we go to California to get on the naval ships.
Oh, okay, just drive a few hours. But so what kind of? So I'm going to assume here that you did go. You said you went into the military, so you're a Navy man then.
Well, I went into the Air Force actually.
Oh, okay.
And my height has a lot to do with the reason for that.
Okay.
Because I found out that those naval ships are kind of dangerous if you're tall.
I guess that's true. That needs to be my height in that situation.
I had to do a lot of ducking, and I still hit my head sometimes.
And then I couldn't even imagine. I've never been on a naval ship, of course, but to think that there's a lot of movement that's going on there, right? And then you're as tall as you are.
There's just a lot of low ceilings or bulkheads, I guess they call them in the Navy. But so I decided I was going to stay on land.
Okay, so you went to the Air Force, right? Yeah. How long did you? I guess back it up. You got brothers and sisters? Or?
I got one sister. One sister. We're real close in age. She's younger than me, but not by a lot. Okay, so we're real close.
So went off to the Air Force. Where did you go? Like, just kind of explain that to me. How you found your path to being in the Air Force and where you went for that? Like, kind of what was your thing there? Did you do full-time National Guard? Just kind of explain that to the audience.
4 years of active duty.
Okay.
And then another 4 years of inactive reserves.
Okay.
Which basically meant I didn't do anything those 4 years. They could just call me back if things got really bad. But yeah, for 4 years of active duty, I went to San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
That was where basic training boot camp was at. And then after that, I went on to do my job training. And I did law enforcement, military police, the Army would call it. They called it security police.
Okay.
Actually, it used to be air police.
Okay.
Then it was security police, and now they've changed the name to security forces.
Okay.
Same basic job.
Well, that's cool. Was there any particular reason why you wanted to pick that as your interest?
Yeah, absolutely. That was intentional. That was very intentional. Ever since I was a young kid, law enforcement is what I wanted to do. Okay. Both my dad and my grandfather both were involved in law enforcement.
Okay.
And they didn't force it on me. I just always grew up as a kid, playing cops and robbers.
Yeah.
And I just always wanted to do law enforcement. Yeah. And so my intention was, because most civilian police departments, you have to be 21 before you can work. And you could go into the military and do law enforcement at a younger age. So my intent was to go into the military, get some law enforcement experience, and then I would get out after my 4 years of active duty, and then get on with some sort of civilian department, whether it be a city police, whatever, sheriff's department, whatever, some sort of law enforcement agency. Yeah. And that was my goal. When I got out of the military, the Lord started changing my heart and changing my direction, and kind of showing me He had something different for me to do.
So I guess ask the question is, so you're here and you have your plan of what you're going to do. And then I'm assuming that because you went into the military, you were going to be able to go to college, and that was kind of what you were looking at doing, because they'll pay for your college, right? If you go to the military. So then
GI Bill.
GI Bill. So then you're looking at the possibility of going into school. And was it at that point in time when you were looking at what you might want to go to school for that you felt that God was tugging on your heart?
No, it was really just a matter of, I'll back up a little bit. I grew up in a good moral home, and we went to church some. We weren't necessarily the family that was going to regularly and be in church every single week, though. I mean, so I had a foundation. I had a foundation laid in me by my parents, but it was really in the military. I met a good friend of mine, still good friends with today. He lives out in North Carolina, and he had been raised in a real strong, devout Christian home, and he just we got to be friends, and we just had a relationship. And when we were stationed after we got through all of our training, we were stationed together in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he found a church there that he started going to, and he invited me to come along, and so I started going to church there, and that was kind of the beginning of the real beginning, I guess, of the spiritual journey that God was taking me on, and how He was changing my heart and changing my plans and that kind of thing. And then when we went our separate ways after our active duty service was over, He just, we stayed in touch. We've always stayed in touch, and He just kept encouraging me, hey, make sure you find a good Bible-believing church when you get back to Vegas, because I was going back to Vegas. He was going back to where he was from. And so I did. And this will kind of date me a little bit, Lance, because when I got out of the military, the internet did exist, but it wasn't as big as it is today. Yeah. And so, nowadays people find a church on the internet, right? Yeah. And when I got back to Vegas, I opened up the Yellow Pages. And I don't know what the demographics of your listening audience is, but some people may not know what the Yellow Pages.
That's quite possible. I mean, I know. I'm starting to think. Well, I know what the Yellow Pages is. I'm not sure. Right?
So I opened up the Yellow Pages, and I just found what looked like maybe some good churches to check out, and I just wrote down a few, and I was like, I'm going to start visiting these churches. One Sunday I'll go here, one Sunday I'll go there, and I found a good one, and I never made it down my list. I went to the first one, and I planted myself there. And the Lord just kept working in my heart and got me to the point of saying, look, I'm ready to give my life to Jesus and to be baptized. And I was baptized there. And then just as that growth process continued, is when I started sensing, maybe law enforcement I'm not supposed to continue the law enforcement thing. And maybe God's got something else for me. And I just started to trying to kind of flesh that out, And I got to be friends. It was a real big church, so there was a lot of pastors on staff, and so I got to be friends with one of the pastors that was kind of the young adult ministry pastor at that church, and he really just kind of became a mentor to me, and really just helped me to kind of discern some of this stuff that I was sensing. I found out he went to a small Christian college. It used to be known as Johnson Bible College in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's now called Johnson University. And that's where I ended up going to school. But I'd never heard of that school. So it was just all through my relationship with him, because he had gone there, and so he told me about it. And
so he was telling you about it, and so do you feel like do you feel like at that point in time that being mentored by this person and then hearing about their experience there, feeling the calling on your life, that it was pretty much clear that you were supposed to make that move?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I actually took a visit out. I was still out in Las Vegas at the time. Took a visit out to Tennessee to visit the school, and it really felt the Spirit was leading me there, and I was supposed to be there. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So it wasn't long after I went back to Vegas, and I don't know. I guess just a few months later is then when I kind of packed up, went out to Tennessee, and started my studies there.
And so I've heard a couple of your sermons, and you mentioned how I mentioned one in particular that we had talked about, the faith over fear, and you tell a little bit of that story, which is that you traveled all the way across the country by yourself. Before you went from Las Vegas, you went from Massachusetts to Las Vegas with family,
right?
And then of course you went into the military, but then you went home. So I'm going to assume that you had a good family there. You'd mentioned that, so that was home. But now you're striking out, knowing I'm going someplace else and doing something entirely different.
And I was, when I'd gotten out of the military, I was working security actually in a casino, a hotel casino in Vegas, and actually worked at two different ones there. And so I had an apartment. I was on my own, I got rid of the apartment. I moved some stuff into a storage unit, packed up what I could in my car. And then drove out to Tennessee.
And you're in your mid-20s at this point, like 22, 23 maybe at this point?
I was 24, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still young, but you're there knowing that you've got a life's path that you're going to move into. So so you show up in Johnson College, which is now Johnson University, and that's in Tennessee. And is that a biblical college specifically?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a Christian college. It's a private Christian college.
Okay.
Yeah. Small school, beautiful campus though, right on the kind of the outskirts of Knoxville. Okay. Well, Knoxville's really grown. I don't know if it's really the outskirts anymore. It was at the time. Right. But beautiful, just right there at the kind of the base of the Smoky Mountains and stuff. So it's a beautiful area.
When you got there, I guess I have an interesting question I was trying to formulate in my mind, but when you get there and it's a completely different area, different people, did you find yourself having any difficulties with just being like, well, now I'm here and I'm all alone?
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe there might have been moments like that, but not really though. I mean, I felt pretty at peace. Yeah. That this is where I was supposed to be. So I guess we're human, right? And I'm sure there was maybe some moments of loneliness, but for the most part, no. I mean, I was at peace. This is where I'm supposed to be.
That's what I'm supposed to do.
And so I was at peace with that. And so, I mean, I can't say that I really had a whole lot of those thoughts.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, just like in another sermon, I mean, I'm an avid follower, right? So I'm realizing that now after talking with you, you walk out your faith, right? And a lot of your sermons have real life
imperfectly.
Yeah, well, but you have real world life experiences that you are able to apply to your sermons that tie right back into what is the principle or the teaching that you're trying to give. Yeah. I just got to say that. But so when you're there and you graduated, what was your I guess what was your direction as far as path? Were you youth family pastor? What was kind of your education? What was your education?
Yeah, the way they. Some of their programs have changed now at Johnson, but when I was there, everybody majored in Bible or theology, and then you basically had like a double major. Okay. So you majored in Bible and theology, and then you had a specialty. Okay. So my specialty was both youth ministry and preaching. Okay. And really. when I went there, I knew, I felt very confident that God was calling me into vocational ministry. I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. And so I did the youth ministry and preaching because I had a heart for both. And really, there wasn't a lot of course difference between youth ministry and preaching. I mean, there was a couple of courses difference. It was mostly the same course of study. So I did the youth ministry and preaching, double major with the Bible and theology there. And then when I graduated from there, I actually went into youth ministry for a short time.
Okay.
And I guess I should back up just a little bit. I met my wife.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
am I getting ahead of you?
No, you're not. No. Tell the story, man.
Yeah, I met my wife there. She's originally from Virginia, and she had been a student at the University of Virginia. She majored in drama at the University of Virginia while I was in the military. So she graduated from the University of Virginia. I got out of the military, and then eventually we both ended up at Johnson. And she majored on the missions program. And I like to tell stories sometimes that I really messed her life up. Because when she went to Johnson, her goal was to get her missions degree and then go to move to Russia.
Okay.
To be a missionary in Russia. And then I came into her life and just messed that all up.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, that's funny that you say that, but it's interesting, like, you profess to be able to kind of know where you're going, and then you were there and doing it, and then when you met your wife, what's her name?
Stephanie.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. When you met her, and then she fell in love with you because you're tall, dark, and handsome, right? I love it.
Oh man, you're laying it on thick, Lance.
All right. But okay, so she, all right, we gotta keep it together here. But so anyway, she met you, right, and then knew, like, I'm going to assume that this is where God wants her, and that you guys are supposed to be together, because you can't make her do it. She has to willingly do it.
That's
so
right.
Obviously, so did you got married after you were out of college?
Yeah, we actually got married right before our last semester.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, we got married in January of 2004. And then we graduated in June or May, whatever it was, of 2004. And then so when we graduated, we actually went back to her home church in Virginia, where I served as the youth pastor there.
Very cool.
For a little bit. And we didn't stay there very long. When we went there, we had often been warned about the dangers of going. When you go into vocational ministry, going to your home church can be a dangerous thing, because sometimes when you go there, people have a hard time seeing you now in a different role when maybe they knew you as that snotty brat-nosed kid. And
that makes sense. But, I mean, there is an element of that, because if you're from a community, then everybody knows every mistake you ever made.
Yeah,
and
sure,
so because we have a tendency as human beings, to judge people. Then it's easy for us to go, back in 2001, or whatever, that's who you were. So are you really,
And so we knew that, but we didn't think it would be too much of an issue because it wasn't my home church.
Right.
But it was her home church. She had been there ever since she was about 2 years old. She had been in that church. So there were some interesting dynamics that she had to deal with.
Yes.
Being there now in a different role. But I also found out about myself too, that even though I love kids, and youth ministry, I believe, is very important, my heart really was not to be working full-time in youth ministry.
Okay.
And so when we left there, that's when I first took my first preaching ministry at a small church in Kentucky.
Okay, so let me say something here. I just picked up on something. She was in missions, right? That doesn't mean go home. That means like anywhere to be, like maybe not Russia, but I definitely don't want to go across the street.
That's why I messed her life up. I messed it up, Lance.
Well, where did you take her again? You said you took your first. So you went up and you guys walked out in faith. You then became a pastor at where? Tell me that story.
Oh, where we went after I left the youth ministry?
Yes.
Yeah, I went to London, Kentucky.
Kentucky.
London is it's a small town. Well, at the time, population wise, it was smaller than Newton. Actually, I don't know what it is now. I think it's grown a little bit now, but it's about halfway between Lexington, Kentucky, and Knoxville, Tennessee. It's about an hour and a half either direction, and nice area. We enjoyed it. We really enjoyed it. It was a small church that had gone through a lot of struggles. Had a lot of, because I mean the church was started back in like 1893, I think it was.
Wow.
And in that time they had gone through a lot of problems, and it's hard sometimes to overcome a lot of issues in churches when they're that old.
Yes.
But we enjoyed our time there. We really did. A lot of great people there that we still kind of somewhat keep in touch with. So we enjoyed our 7 years there.
Wow, 7 years.
Yeah,
So
we
you
spent 7 years there, yeah.
Did you guys have kids there and stuff? Or, I mean, did you really lay down some roots there?
Our son was born, and we moved when he was about a year old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So he was born he's a Kentucky man.
Yeah, really, yeah. He doesn't remember it, but yeah, about the first year of his life he lived there.
Do you ever take it back and be like, this is where you were born?
but he doesn't remember living there, but
yeah. No, so you moved on. What was you felt God was calling you in a different to a different place. You know, I mean, this is not uncommon for people who are pastors.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's probably rare that a pastor starts at a church and 45 years later they're still there, probably for the same
nowadays
reason.
especially.
Yeah, well, and it's
in a different generation that was more common.
Yes,
but nowadays that's very uncommon. Yeah.
Well, it's like you had mentioned that with a church that has been there that long, that no matter what, nobody's perfect, nothing's perfect, and so we go back to that whole thing about being somebody in your hometown. Nobody's perfect. It's like the mistake. And once again, we go back to judgment, I see. And it's like, okay, well, surely there's somebody that didn't like what you preached on Sunday. And then, there's somebody else that was like, oh, well, I didn't, Susie doesn't, and anybody that goes to church realizes that we're all human beings and that we're all a work in progress. And,
Sure.
And I know in my own experience, because
I like that phrase, by the way.
Work in progress.
That we're all work in progress.
Yes.
I've said that many a times, even in sermons sometimes. We are. We're all works in progress.
That's how we get away from judging, right? Is to realize that, hey, there by the grace of God, there go I. Instead of judging and being condescending and critical, it's better to pray and ask that God be able to just continue to work on them and then realize that, well, at the same time, he's still working on me. Remember that old song, He's Still Working on Me, Make Me What I Ought to Be?
That's right.
Just a day to make the students. All right. That takes me way back to like elementary school. It's like probably one of the first things I remember. But interestingly enough, okay, so then you go from there. You're there 7 years, and then where does God take you from there?
Yeah, that's when we went back to Virginia, and we actually kind of took a little detour because we came from Virginia when we moved here. In July is when I got here, last July, and we came from Virginia. We had been at that church for almost 10 and a half years.
Wow.
We spent there before we really just sensed that the Lord was just wanting to do something new, and it was just time to move on. But before we got to that church, we actually stopped off, I should say, for a short time at a different church, and that just turned out to be not a healthy situation.
Okay.
And it was the type of situation when this little church that we kind of stopped off at for a few months, it was a church that of a very, very small church. It was a group of people that had gotten mad about some decisions that my wife's home church had made.
Wow.
And they decided they were going to leave the church and start their own church.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so that was I could see how there'd be so many complications with that.
And it was pretty much all older people.
Yeah.
So I won't go into details, but you can probably imagine what some of the things they were mad about.
Well, and it's maybe changing of the times. Maybe.
So they knew us, they knew me from my time as the youth pastor at my wife's home church. And so when they heard that we were leaving Kentucky and that we were looking for a new ministry, they contacted us. And so we ended up going there. We thought when we went there, we thought we knew what the situation was. It turned out to be a whole lot more than what we thought.
Yeah.
And so I won't go into all the details, but it was a lot more than what we thought. And so we realized real quick it wasn't going to be a healthy situation for our family or even for them.
Yeah.
Because just missionally, we were on different pages as to they were just very internally focused.
Yes.
And rather, a church should be externally focused, right? We ought to be concerned about the people in the community and the people we're trying to reach. And we were not on the same page there. So we just realized it's best for everybody if we move on. So that's why we ended up going to the church in Virginia where we spent almost 10 and a half years that we came from when we moved here.
Now, and I got to say, I can agree with you. I haven't grew up and went to the same church throughout my entire life, and 40 years later, here I am in the same church. Mm-hmm. So I have seen a lot of different churches. Churches have different ministries. There are times in which pastors are really just feel like they need to focus on the youth of the community, let's say, right? We need to be a younger church. We need to have families. This is where my heart is. And then there's, church that says, well, we're here to try to keep things consistent, right? We don't want to change a whole lot. And it's interesting how what you just said makes a lot of sense, because it's not that it's a bad thing. Like what people always want to say it's a bad thing, but it's okay to say, hey, my heart is here. Just like you said, your heart was not really in youth ministry, more into preaching. And then it's not like, oh, well, that's a negative. And it's just not a negative. If you stop off and you realize, well, the direction that you all would like for the church to go and be, and my heart is somewhere else, that's not a negative. Right? Yeah. I mean, there's something to be taken from everything, a learning experience for you, learning experience for them, and they have the ability to find somebody that's ministry is to focus on, internal issues and not external issues. Yeah. But you said something interesting, and I kind of want to ask you that. So during that 11 years that you were at the most recent, before you came here, what's like something that you could take away? Give me some nugget that you have about what was the best thing that you can remember about that church and being a pastor of that church.
I guess probably the relationships that we had with the people there. Unfortunately, it was a church that had some history as well. Yeah, they had gone through back. It's been probably 25 years ago. They went through a really bad church split. Okay, and unfortunately, they've never really been able to recover from that because church splits are just ugly. Yeah. And there's always, when they happen, there might be one group that thinks, well, we really won that one. Nobody wins. Yeah. Nobody wins in a church split. And that church was never really able to recover from that. And so there were some real struggles in that church. But we built some solid relationships. They were good people. We still keep in touch with some of them. And good people. They were good to us, good to our families. In a lot of ways, spoiled our kids, and so just a lot of good people. I think the relationships are really important, and of course, we lived in a beautiful part of the country too, right in the Shenandoah Valley. Oh, nice! Is where we were at in Virginia, about 30 minutes either way from Charlottesville, Virginia, or Harrisonburg, Virginia. Yeah, we're university towns, but right on the I don't know, in the front yard, backyard, whatever of the Shenandoah National Park. Beautiful area. Awesome. But yeah, so it was a beautiful area and had beautiful relationships. Good people.
Can I go deep with you? Yeah. I'm listening to you and I'm hearing and I'm sure anybody's hearing that there's it seems like churches just have hurts, right? And so because people are hurting. I mean, we were just on Facebook the other day, and you made a comment on one of my posts, and said, we all need Christ, and that we're all hurting, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but trying to paraphrase the best. It's like we're all lost and hurting souls. We really are. That's right. And all of us need Christ. Yeah. And then when you get into church, and that's the place that you're supposed to be, where there's love, compassion, caring, the Word of God. I think everybody listening who attends church or has in the past or can recall a time in which they were hurt by something, but it wasn't the church itself in as much as it was the people. Right. So,
well, that's what the church is.
Yeah, I know. And so so that's where I want to go deep, is to say, like, what are your thoughts on that, Chad? I mean, when you really get down to the nitty gritty, and people in church are hurting, and they wind up hurting others in church, how dangerous is that?
Wow. Yeah, we could. You're gonna have to have me back on to talk about.
I'm sorry. Hey, just so you know, everybody, we didn't have I did not give him a list of questions beforehand. I said it's not going to be that in depth. I'm not going to go down some road with you, but my heart is just I'm sitting here, I'm the same way, and I've seen you're striking a nerve with me because I've seen things happen in church that shouldn't happen in church.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've seen church splits, and we all have, right? But see, that isn't that one thing that we focus on as humans, and then that allows that ultimately pulls us back, and we might not be as invested as we should be in our church, or we're always being skeptical and to go real deep into stuff. I mean, it's not like it's anything uncommon for churches to say, well, I don't agree that you should be fully baptized, you just need to be with a cup, and then the other one says, no, it needs to be 2 cups, and the next one says, no, actually it needs to be your feet first, and the next one says, no, it needs to be your head first, and then now we have 10. I think I read at one point in time in my study of we have over 60,000 different denominations, but every single one of those denominations came from a church hurt and a church split. And so when you talk about your personal experience and the struggles that you have as a pastor shepherding a flock, that one of those things is a big deal, is a schism. It's like we go to church because the world hurts, and then we go to church and it hurts. And then where are you left? So I didn't mean to go completely deep on you there.
No,
but
you're
how
fine.
dangerous is it?
It is, yeah. Interesting thing. You talk about the baptism. The biblical form of baptism is immersion. We won't get into all that.
Is it at a lake though? Is it at a pond? Is it at a pool? Is it in a bathtub? Is it warm water, cold water? I mean, what is it?
I heard a story one time about some guy that was being immersed. Biblically baptized, immersed. But when he went back under the water, he raised up his arm. And there was some guy, a true story. I didn't witness it, but I talked to somebody who did. True story. They were afraid that every part of him but his arm was going to go to heaven. Because he raised up his arm.
But come on. It's like, let's see. And even then, that's interesting. Okay. It's so funny. It's so funny. I could tell you a personal story of something that happened. I believe in the full submersion of baptism, and my loved one just was recently baptized and didn't have the opportunity to be fully submerged. So does that mean that they weren't baptized? And I say, no, I think God knows the heart and the heart motive. I think that we try our best, right? If we can get you drowned in a bathtub, we're going to drown you in a bathtub.
That's right.
And it's going to be cold.
And that's it. Lance, you said it right there, man. We're not God.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not God. And we can't judge a heart, And so, we're at the mercy of God always. Yeah. Whether we've been baptized or not.
Do you get an A for effort? You surely get an A for effort, right?
Well, we can talk to him one day about that. It's not up to us,
it's
right?
a heart thing, right? We talk about repentance, and we even talk about baptism, and we know that, I'm big with the dismas, or some people might not know this, but the good thief, the person on the cross next to Christ, right? Who when he looked to Christ, he said, surely I tell you today you will be in paradise. Well, he wasn't baptized.
Jesus made the rules. He can break them anytime he wants, right?
Well, love and forgiveness does that, right? There's judgment, and then there's love and forgiveness, and that's what it's all about. But
the thing is, Lance, a lot of times when you talk about baptism, a lot of people, they just want to make excuses. We're responsible to do what we know we're supposed to do. Yeah. And for most people, when they die, it's probably not going to be an opportunity or a situation where they didn't have the opportunity. Yeah. They just, for whatever reason, didn't do it.
Yeah.
Now, if you die and you just legitimately didn't have the opportunity, then absolutely God's grace and mercy, prevails.
Yes.
Yes. So.
But if we're supposed to follow in Christ's footsteps, then that's what we do. We get baptized. That's the teaching, right?
That's right.
So interesting. One thing that I can say that has attracted me to you, for you to be the first pastor that I've ever asked to come out here on the program, is a lot to do with the fact that a lot of your messages, and I truly believe you can know the heart of a pastor by what messages they speak. And that is, you constantly go back to the love of Christ. And I'll give you a scenario because I'm a watcher, okay? And everybody remembers during the Super Bowl, there was this ad that came out, spent millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on this ad, right? He gets us.
Yeah.
And when I looked at that, it was moving to me because, well, at one point in time, I was that person. I was the person that was in that picture that needed Christ's love. And you know what? When he offers forgiveness to us and love to us, then that's kind of like washing our feet, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so I identified with
We've
that.
all been those people.
Yeah.
I mean,
But there was a huge uproar about that. And there was a lot of Facebook comments and all this. And then you came forward as the shepherd of the flock here locally and spoke out. And I'm not going to say was like for the ad or anything like that, but for the understanding that, God is here for all of us. He loves us all.
Sure.
He's here to forgive us. He loves the prostitute just as much as he loves the drug addict, just as much as he loves the thief, just as much as he's like, because we've all been there, right? And so what you said and articulated really allowed me to see your heart. I know that there was some people that tried to criticize that and everything.
There always will be.
But it's true, that that's your heart, and that has what has got me to be to the point where I'm like, I want to start doing something here on the program where we just focus on faith. And how do you do that? You do the testimonies, or what do you do? And I really believe that God led me in the direction to try to start doing something where I interview pastors as well, so we can get to know them and we can just, where do they go to church and who they are as a human being, and then who they are, why they feel like they were called to the ministry. And after I saw that, it just kept getting me to the point where I was like, this person needs to be the first one. And then not only that, but I think you're probably the newest pastor in town. I might be wrong, but and I don't want to monologue anymore, but it's like you come here to Newton, you come here to Harvey County, to be a pastor of people you do not know. You have no connection here with anybody. Do you?
No, we didn't. I mean, we're forming those connections now, but we didn't.
Yes.
I had never been to Kansas before.
Really?
Before we visited, the church. Technically, my wife had me beat because she came to Wichita back several years ago when they had a international conference on missions. I think it was called the National Missionary Convention at that time. It was held in Wichita several years ago. So she had been to Kansas before me, but not that she knew anybody really.
Right.
But
she's seen it.
But
she's been there, done that.
She's seen it. That's
flat.
right. Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
The whole he gets us thing. A lot of people had a problem with it because they thought, well, it doesn't tell the whole gospel story. Well, it wasn't meant to.
Yeah.
Those commercials are meant to pique interest,
make impressions,
and get conversations started.
Yes.
So that we can start having conversations with people about who Jesus is. But they were mad because they somehow didn't want just the love of Jesus to be displayed in that commercial, but they also wanted it to demonstrate the fact that there's consequences for sin and judgment and all that stuff, and all that stuff's true.
Yes.
But that wasn't the intent of the commercials.
Yeah.
We're supposed to start a conversation.
But let's go deep here. Let's go deep. Okay. A scripture that comes to mind to me, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, is where everybody was taking out the prostitute and they were wanting to stone her. That's judgment, right? That's consequences for sin. And then you look at what Christ did, and Christ said, hey, if you're without sin, cast the first stone.
Right.
So ultimately, I I mean, I'm just picking your brain here. We're going deep here. We really are going deep here. I'm sorry, everybody.
This does not go real deep. So, man, I'm sorry.
No,
sorry to disappoint.
But it's the practicality of the matter is like, I see you as being somebody who leans in with love. I see you as being somebody that truly is out there in the community that wants to bring people to church, that wants to be able to, just come one, come all. You need Christ, and after that, then we get better, and then Christ works on us, right? So kind of just, if Reader's Digest version, I hope it doesn't be that way to say it that way, because I don't want to get that kind of, I don't know, to say something that somebody would be offended by, to say we're Reader's Digest versioning something. But what do you really feel about the mission that you're here for, and the mission of Newton Christian Church with you as leadership? What, does that kind of come in line with it? I mean, are you actually saying that you as a shepherd here are okay with the prostitute showing up? You're okay with the drug addict showing up? You're okay with the person coming that smells like cigarette smoke or might not be, all put together?
Right.
Is that what you're about? Is that what Newton Christian Church is about?
Sure. And really, let's go back a little bit to what you asked me before, because we kind of went down a rabbit hole, and we didn't.
Sorry, I did that.
Oh, no, it's my fault just as much as yours. We just having good conversation. But, you talked about, the problems that churches are known for, and the hurts that people have experienced in churches and stuff. And so often, sadly, I love the church. I love the church. The church saved my life. And, but the church so often has been its own worst enemy. So often, you're right, it has inflicted a lot of hurt and judgment in people's lives. And it's a big deal, man. I mean, the consequences when people decide to divide and I'm going off starting my own church, all that, the consequences of that are long standing, and sometimes people don't realize how long standing they are, the damage they're doing. So the church is supposed to be about love and acceptance. Now that doesn't mean we accept sin. I'm a firm believer in the Bible, and I don't think we start changing what the Bible teaches just because we live in the 21st century and because things are different now. I'm a firm believer in the scriptures. And I'm not gonna tell anybody that, hey, if you're doing this when the Bible clearly says that's sin, that you're okay. But are you welcome to come worship with us? Yeah, absolutely. It's like you said earlier, right? We're all works in progress. Yes. We're all sinners. We're all in need of grace. And we're all at different spiritual points on our journey, Some of us are further along than others. But everybody's welcome, I mean, whether you're struggling with, it's funny, you mentioned, the cigarette smoke thing there. I told you earlier that I heard somebody say it this way. Smoking's not going to send you to hell. It's just going to make you smell like you've been there,
It's not even funny, but it's the truth.
But I mean, seriously though, if somebody's struggling with alcohol or drug addiction or prostitution you mentioned, or, homosexuality or whatever the sin is, God doesn't put grades on sin and say, well, that sin, that's way more serious than that sin over here. Yeah. We're all guilty of sin. Whether it's lying or gossip or anger,
judgment,
or addictions, judgment. Yeah. It's all sin, and it grieves the heart of God. Yeah. So all people are welcome. We're not going to accept the sin to say, oh, that's okay. If you want to live that way, that's okay. Yeah. Do we accept you as someone made in the image of God, though? Absolutely. Yeah. And if you want to journey with us as we try to become more Christ-like, man, you're welcome. Yeah. You're welcome. And so yeah, my heart for Newton Christian Church, my heart for any local church that I'm a part of is to be a place for all people, because we all need Jesus. I think you were talking about the the Facebook posts.
Yes.
And I think maybe one of the I don't know, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but one of the things I think you might have been referring to is, I said the church ought to be a place where it's okay not to be okay.
Yes.
Because none of us are okay.
Yeah.
And we live in a culture that people are offended now. Well, they're offended about everything, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, what can you not? I'm offended about being offended. I'm offended about not being offended, honestly.
But a lot of people are offended if you say we're not okay. It's almost like they're offended to say you're a sinner.
Yeah.
Well, you are.
Yeah.
So am I.
So we all.
We all
and
are.
if you truly believe
That's
in the
right.
gospel of Christ,
That's
it
right.
says that we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right?
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
But your heart has really started to show in your sermons. If anybody's watching it, if anybody goes there, I truly believe that. And I am getting the message that, like you just said, that I asked you, that, come one, come all. I think it was very good that you clarified, your position to say that, well, we're not just going to sit here and not teach the word of God, right? We're not going to, we're going to teach the Bible here, but at the same time, everybody's welcome because, well, there by the grace of God, there go I, right?
That's right.
It's I've just seen so often, and it's almost like anybody that does not go to church will be shaking their head yes at this, right? And it's like, why would I go to church? I'm not welcome there. I hate to say that people go, it's the church whole, because it's not, but it's very prevalent in many congregations that unless you are A, B, C, D, E, F, and some lists are longer and some lists are shorter, but if you're not able to walk like a duck, talk like a duck, and quack like a duck, then you're not welcome here at the duck church.
Right. And I think it goes both ways too. When people say, well, I'm not welcome there, sometimes they're absolutely right. There are some churches that are just big on judgment, and they definitely treat some people like they're not welcome. I think sometimes people have the perception that they're not welcome. Maybe it's even an excuse. Well, I'm not going to go because I just know they're not going to welcome me. I know they're going to judge me. And so, it goes both ways.
Yes.
It really does. I know of some churches. Yeah, absolutely. Very, very judgmental. And if you walk in and you look different, you're dressed different, they don't welcome you. They don't accept you. But not all churches are that way.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just have that perception to think, well, all churches are the same.
Yeah.
And they're not all the same.
Well,
sadly, there's far too many that are like that. I admit that, but they're not all that way, you know?
And so I guess my question is you are the shepherd of the flock. If you're talking to somebody right now, we've covered a lot, okay?
We have.
But if you're somebody that was listening to this podcast and there's been things that you have identified with and you're like, I've been part of church and splits, or I felt like I went to church and I was not accepted there. I felt like I was judged there. They didn't want me there in some cases. I went there and was down on, I've even heard of people that like go to churches and none in particular would I say this, but just really did get the vibe. I take it back to the homeless guy. The homeless guy that comes into church, that hasn't showered in a few days, that is not smelling the best, that is not in the best spot, and we don't want them there, or and it's just like, if you had the chance to talk to somebody right now that's listening that says, man, I have church hurts, I've been hurt, why should I listen to this person, and what is this person telling me? So if you're talking directly to that person right now, Chad, what do you have to say to them?
Well, I would say that the church is ultimately about Jesus. Is your faith in Jesus, or is your faith in people? If our faith is in people, we're always going to get let down. We're always going to get hurt. We're always going to be disappointed. But if our faith is in Jesus, I don't think he ever lets us down. And so, it a lot of times comes back to the question, that people that don't want to be a part of the church, well, I don't have to go to church to be saved. Oh, true. I agree. It's not the church that saves us. It's Jesus that saves us. I also know that it's a whole lot harder to live faithfully for Jesus without the community of a church. And so I would just say, don't give up on being a part of a faith community because of bad experiences. I've gone out to restaurants before and I've had a bad meal. I've had a bad service. Maybe some restaurants that I'm never going to go back to.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I'm never going to go out to eat again. And so there are so many churches nowadays. And of course we know, right, that ultimately there are all these different churches because of the problems that churches have had and they split off and all that kind of thing. And that's not a good thing. But there's a lot of different churches out there though. And so try them out. Yeah. There's plenty of good Bible believing churches. Now, obviously not all churches are standing as firmly on the Word of God as they ought to, but there's plenty that are. There are plenty that are. And so don't give up on the church because of bad experiences, you try some out and you see that maybe there are a couple or a few that are different. Yeah. But yeah, no, the church doesn't save us. Jesus saves us, but we need the fellowship. I know at our church, in Newton Christian Church, we come from a background known as the Restoration Movement, if you're familiar at all with that. And it's basically the idea, started back in the 1800s. The idea was trying to get back to New Testament Christianity. And we're trying to be as close as we can to the church that we read about in the book of Acts, in the New Testament. And so that's what we're striving to be. We're striving to be the New Testament church and New Testament Christianity. And so, that's what we're trying to be. And as you read through Acts, you see that the church, the local body of believers, was very important. Yeah. It was very important, and the people were worshiping God, but they were doing it together. Yeah. They were sharing meals together, they were worshiping together, taking communion together. And so we need that. We need community. We need faith communities and relationships in order to be able to grow fully in our relationship with God. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, let's see here. Yeah, we're coming to the end of the program. I just want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for your heart. I'm glad that you're here. We'll have to sit down one of these days, and I thought we'd have time to talk about what you thought of Harvey County and Newton, but I guess that just wasn't the direction that we were going to go. And
I'll just say, hey, we're loving it here. We're loving it here, man. And we have a basement. That was the one thing. We said, God, if you want us to move to Kansas, we have to have a house with a basement just in case. We have a basement, so we're good. Yeah. We're loving it here and just enjoying just getting out and doing different things and seeing what Kansas is about.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So if you've never seen the program, and anybody watching this program knows that I always give the guest the last word. So you get your chance to speak directly to the hearts and minds of everybody listening right now. What do you have to say?
Yeah. Well, we would love to have you come visit us sometime at Newton Christian Church. And I know nowadays a lot of people check you out online before they ever come in person. And so you can visit our website. It's newtoncc.church. You can also find Newton Christian Church on YouTube or on Facebook as well. And if you don't have a church home, we'd love to have you come and visit us at Newton Christian Church this Sunday, Easter Sunday, to worship with us. We'd love to have you as our guests. So we certainly would invite you if you don't have a place to go. We're always about inviting people, but Easter Sunday is one of those times of the year when it's just big. A lot of times people are more willing to come for Easter Sunday, and so certainly I would extend the invitation to anybody that wants to come. And if you don't know anybody, then look for me in the lobby or look for somebody that maybe looks friendly. Just go up to them, But I'm sure you'll find somebody that's willing to welcome you if you walk through our doors. So we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you with us. Check us out on the web or on social media, and hope to maybe meet you sometime soon.
It's awesome. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll catch you next time, everybody.